So this is Vinayak Godse, and I lead Data Security Council of India. This is a think tank and industry body for cybersecurity, data privacy, and critical technology in the country. So one hand, we work with all the government institutions, engage on a policy or national security initiatives, and also now most of you must be knowing that as a country we are putting together very strong data protection regime. Recently, there was a data protection act which was passed in 2023. There was a rule that government of India draft rule has been published. While we are working on giving input to draft rules, there was also a kind of a AI governance draft guidelines was also notified for us to review, evaluate, and give our comment back to it. Basically, so the data is a central and becoming very central to all the things that we have been doing, right? And we talk about data economy, we talk about data enterprises. In fact, nowadays we hear a lot. Recently, we heard a statement from one of the very senior leader from banking industry that I am a actually data company, I'm actually a technology company, and happens to be doing banking. So whatever product that we have, whatever services we are putting together, so data is becoming central to each of that, basically. All the digitization plan that we have been talking, all the innovation plan that we have been setting. So collecting and getting hold of data, processing it, making use of that data, largely to do three things basically, right? One is to improve the experience of the customer. So most of the digitization story comes out of this. How can you improve the experience of the customers? While doing that, improve the productivity as well. Means whatever your time you used to take, whatever resources that you used to invest to do a particular business transaction, you try to make sure that is done productively. Loan can be processed in a day's time against what used to take a months of time, to so many different things basically, right? And then while you improve the experience, improve your productivity, another important thing that digitization data economy also does, it creates new possibility. So experience, productivity, and possibility is how all this entire game is going to put together. And then we have seen in Indian ecosystem, yes, technology industry, BFSI system, ecosystem has been really leading for this digitization technology journey, but we also see oil energy company, power sector company, manufacturing companies, chemical plants basically. So all of them are now going to very aggressive uh, kind of a strategy for digitization. Finding one is to improve the productivity, creating new possibility for them basically. Right? And in entire ecosystem, as a country, we also created this digital public infrastructure to enable the digitization through Aadhaar to start with, then UPI, now UHID, then digital. If you travel on digital, on airport, the Digi Yatra. So we're creating those stacks and those interfaces, which is really revolutionizing. The UPI in month of August process almost 15 billion number of transactions, right? No other country can come close to such kind of a transformation that we have seen. Right, we created quite a great, interesting narration for digitization, and there was always a talk about US doing the way, Europe doing its way, or China doing their way. But India created a narration to the globe, and there is a UN paper on this now that they are advocating other countries to follow India's models to create those interfaces for public, and those interfaces can revolutionize the way the digitization could happen, right? And now there is this thresholds, right? Means digitization was threshold. Role of mobile in that was very important part, and identity that created. So there was a strategy of government of India, gender account, identity, and mobile. So all that come together to create those possibilities for us, and it's led to creation of UPI, and that has created a lot of those possibilities for us, right? And then in the technology ecosystem, so as a Data Security Council of India, we do this kind of a future casting of technologies. We do look at what is going to happen from now, next 3 years, next 5 years, next 10 years, next 20 years, basically. And there's a specific initiative of a Niti Aayog, which we are realizing. We in a way we realize that in 2027, actually it was early 2010s to 2027, basically and then 2022 basically. So this was a significant effort that people put together to solve the problem of AI, which led to generative AI basically. So there is a realization that every time we are playing a catch-up game. We heard about quantum as well. So AI also, when it came in 2022, so this was a threshold, right? And that threshold has changed everything. So until now, AI has been talked about mostly in black box case, but generative AI is a globally available wisdom. It's a global planetary level wisdom. Now we are making use of that for solving our problem, basically. Until now, AI that we have been trying to do is to we have our problem, we have data, we have put together some people, and we have algorithm, and we'll solve that problem. Now there is that kind of AI has been talked as a black box AI. Generative AI is a planetary level intelligence and wisdom, and we are trying to make use that planetary level wisdom and AI, capabilities to solve our enterprise problem. As of now, it's doing primarily three things basically, right? Generative AI is largely three things. Again, three words here, right? One is generation. It does generation, and that's why it's been used for a lot of generation of video, generation of audio, generation of text. Yeah, you ask question, it generates the answer for that. That's one thing. Second thing that generative AI does is interaction. It interacts human like to a person. The way you put a question in simple English, simple Marathi, simple Gujarati, it can give answer. It can understand your language better, and it can interact with you basically. Right? So interactions comes there, right? And the third important part, which is becoming very important from now, right? Until now, generative AI is largely generation and interaction, and that's why when you see about use cases, you always say, oh, there is a chat which gives a human-like interaction kind of a thing. Then there was a phone which recently came without screen. There's this Rabbit R1 phone. Some of you must have seen. There is no screen in that phone, right? You can talk to that phone. It can listen to you and it can re-order back to you. So this is called the AI interfaces. So interactivity with a human, semantic interactivity with human, right? And now suddenly we started seeing now generation, interactivity. Now it is increasingly going for action. So it takes action. It can take action on behalf of you, basically. Right? And to taking action, there are two things which is required, right? One is why would you ask somebody to take action on behalf of you? Taking action is knowing things better, right? Processing all of those dimension interest to take that action, basically. Processing all of those contexts to take that action, basically. Right? And then second part of the taking decision is once you take a decision, you give logical reasoning for that, right? If both of things are coming together, you are able to process all of that information to take the action. And for each of the action that you have taken, you can provide a logical reasoning for that. Then you can rely on the system. You can rely on something which can take action on behalf of you, basically. Right? Increasingly, generative AI from now until now it was more generation, more interactivity. Now it will go for more action, basically. Right? It will take action. It will automate. It will be autonomous ecosystem that we will be seeing from now. A lot of breakthroughs. When you are take action, means you have to process a lot of data. Until now, it was generating, and now you have to also give logical reasoning for that, basically. So this is how we will see generative AI from now. And if I ask you a question, right, where exactly this computing is came? So coming now, this is a globally available intelligence, right? And everybody, millions and billions of people are using it, basically, right? So amount of data that is getting processed, amount of data, there are two things basically. In the processing is two things, right? One is the training, the compute required to train the model, right? Second part is when you put a question, you put a prompt, or it asks you to make something. So there is a compute as well, right? It has to process because it has everything. So we just heard there are trillions of parameters trying to put together. The 4O is supposed to be 2 trillion parameters, and now they are not publishing parameters itself. So the models nowadays will be hundreds of trillions of parameters model, basically. Right? So entire world's knowledge, in fact, by 2027, they will be consuming entire publicly available data, and that will amount to 2600 trillion tokens. And token is the smallest part of the thing that needs to be processed. For example, if you're asking question, I had a question yesterday that if I have to intellectually do a conversation, where in Pune I can do it? This simple raw question, right? But then it has to understand Pune. It has to see where this interaction happened. It has to understand where this conversation happens like this, which are the places where this kind of debate discussion happens, or what kind of events happens in Pune, and then it has to process all of that small thing to give me that answer. And it does it in the shortest possible time. Each of the small finite nuances it process, usually that is simple language of processing that tokens basically, right? It processes that tokens and give that answers to me. So when I put this question, it is a compute that is required as well to process all of those tokens to give that answer basically. It's called as an inference compute. So there's a training compute and there's inference compute. And in the last 2 months, especially in October, there's a tremendous amount of innovation happening there. They could able to scale the inference. What that means, compute required to give answer, give answer to your question, to your prompt. So they are able to scale it. Until now, what used to happen if you ask complex question, if you give complex kind of a prompt, then the compute will be also, the time required to compute will also rise quite significantly. But they could be able to scale the compute. Means what happens now, whatever is the size of your input, whatever complex is your prompt, the time required to compute that will not be that significantly higher. Ideally, it will be stagnant. And all this GPU, all of those kind of processing, and why that tells us why NVIDIA becomes a big story. And now TPU of Google, and now there are Cerebras, Samanoa, there are so many Grok, there's so many such company now. They realize that compute is a thing, and NVIDIA can almost reaching $3 trillion company because they have these GPUs. And with this, all those possibilities, you are able to scale the compute. You are able to reduce the time required to do compute. Means what is happening now. Now you can make this real time AI possible. You can make things on a real time basis. I did when a couple of months back. I was in Silicon Valley. We did this. I did one of my friend, which is a Tesla. We did this trial of FSD. It's like a fully automated car, right? And then in 3 hours of our drive, there is only one instance where it has asked the driver to take control off. So this is real-time AI, right? What is, you must have heard some images or videos, right? You can talk to a person in your language, that person understands their own language. He talks back and you again hear the answers in your language. Google has shown us that video basically. So real-time AI is now possible basically. And when real-time AI happens, there's tremendous development. Now you can take AI in physical world. Until it's more logical, virtual world. Now, real-time AI is now you can ask robot to go in any unknown situation. You can have car there, you can have robot, you can smart watches, smart home. So many different physical world digitization and AI in physical will become tremendous amount of possibility basically. Right? So this physical world AI would bring a lot of those possibilities again, because once the robot goes there, once there is a car, once there's a fridge, any such kind of physical thing basically, then it will learn a lot of physical ecosystem, where we call this a perception ambient computing. If I come to this room, I know exactly what is this room, and I can immediately, as a human, get hold of that. But for robot or for any system to understand this room, it's a tremendous amount of computing. But because they are able to scale up the inference, they're able to now make sure that the robot can be thrown to any unknown situation. Car can go to any unknown roads as well. Right? And while do that, they would learn a lot of this physical world better. They will capture physical world better, basically. Again, it will fade back to the LLM, basically. So this data will be fed back to LLM. They say that current LLMs are almost $2, $3, $10 trillion parameter LLM, but probably we'll have quintillions parameter LLM by end of 2030. The LLM size, in terms of size, it will be 10,000, 1 lakh more size of LLM basically, and we require definitely big compute to compute process basically, right? So there are a lot of possibilities that will come out of it. One is a physical environment. There's another thing which is a biological environment, right? There's a bio digital interfaces. You must have seen there are some approval also Neuralink got, where the blind person can see it. They're putting chip in the brain, they're putting chip in the body, right? So there are a lot of those biological. Now I talked about physical environment. Now there is a biological environment. So that will also get digitized a lot, basically, right? There's another important thing which is coming. There is a group of scientists which work together to understand the laughs. They looked at 10,000, 10 million history of a human, all animals, and how they laugh. And they got all the data and they realized that there are 800 different type of the laughs that we do. That means AI is now able to understand emotions better. This emotion, this physical, this biological, all that coming together would make it very different machine altogether. It will make it in such a way that there was certainly a discussion about the artificial general intelligence, and well, we have been struggling to understand generative AI, but world is already talking about AGI. And now we are trying to understand AGI. We do a lot of deep dive discussion, investigation in this area. World is already going to ASI. Anybody knows what is ASI? Artificial super intelligence. It will be much, much superior compared to a human in terms of intelligence. Basically. If you hear that, we are until now we know this Turbo 4 GPT, right? GPT O1, GPT O1 Pro for that matter, GPT O3, which is now coming in. There are a lot of those tests for AGI that has been written. They have broken the test basically, right? So such an acceleration happening, right? Such a every day the things are going to such an extent that a big model are now doing floating. There's a term that they talk about, a flops, floating operation per second. Until now, it was reaching to 10 raised to 23 number of operation per second. The growth, which is just 2 or 3 months old, the growth is a GROK I'm talking about, is a AI of a Twitter, XAI जिसको बोलते हैं, right? So that is now created record. So they are reached to 10 raised to 10 into 10 raised to 25 number of operations, floating operations per second. And by end of 2030, it will go to 10 raised to 32, 33 kind of a thing. So those kind of processing when they're happening, just imagine it will be knowing us, our biology, our emotions, our physical world, right? It will be much superior coming picture. And every day, I'm just doing a session on a doctors, with doctors basically. Lot of diagnosis, it is beating doctors basically in terms of how diagnosis is being done basically. So various different area, the things would be so difficult, so different for us. It will pose quite interesting challenges. It is also opportunities as well, right? And in that case, as this is a miniOrange that we work with, so what is the role of identity management, right? So primarily, if you see now the way systems are happening, I talk about action basically, right? And one of the important thing which is taking us to action is this multi-agentic system. Means agents, multiple agents, that's what they are talking about. So I do a case study on this, like how entire customer service operations can be going away from human to agent, the multiple agents doing that basically. So what will happen with identity of that agent basically, right? What will happen that because they're just processing from one agent to other process, things will go. So what is the handshake protocol basically? What is the security privacy problems there basically? How did you identify agent basically? How did you authenticate those transactions basically, but that agent will be doing basically? How can agent authenticate user, right? So there is an entire interesting science of taking and current understanding of security to the paradigm of AI in a multi-agentic system basically, right? And then eventually we are going to, I talked about autonomous ecosystem, we are going from multi-agentic system to large action model that we are talking about. Entire big operations, there is something I talked about is large action model. So you'll have big operating system where thousands of people probably be working. So all that can be done by ecosystem of different agents working together. And every big actions, you can bifurcate in different actions, you can make an action plan. And then these actions basically would be taken for various different kind of scenarios basically, right? So how do you attribute the actions there basically, right? How did you identify a particular agent from where the data is action is taken here and now it has to pass to the next agent basically, right? So how do you identify that agent basically? What kind of protocol that you set up between agents basically, right? What kind of because we are talking about real time basically, right? Real time AI is coming, so real time authentication of so many different things happening together. So very interesting kind of challenges which we'll see from now, and there are a lot of possibilities for a company like miniOrange or all the engineers which have been here, they could be really able to solve it basically. So this was something I wanted to talk with respect to the possibilities of accelerated AI and how that is throwing quite interesting possibility for security, for privacy, and for the different thing, but more importantly from the identity management perspective. I'm not sure whether we have time for a question answer, but this is what I wanted to discuss on this entire accelerated AI and how things will be changing with this. Thank you. Thank you for patience here.